Welcome to the channel and this relaunch of my Rome campaign for Dividi Et Impera 1.2. Quick bit of information, guys. There will be no gameplay in this video. If you're watching this, what should happen is part 1 that contains the gameplay should be released roughly the same time as this video. But the purpose of this video is to do an introduction to the series. I'm going to do an overview of the 1.2.2 brackets A releases of Dividi Et Impera, just to give some background to the series and why I'm going to do it. Apologies for that, guys, if you came in expecting to see some gameplay. Well, there will be plenty of gameplay in the future, but not in this video. So what am I doing with this series? Well, if you follow the channel, you'll be aware in August 2017, if you're watching this in the future, I started a Rome campaign on the channel simply because I enjoy playing Dividi Et Impera, and one of the downsides of doing blow by blow let's plays like my Egyptian campaign is that you only get to play it 2 or 3 hours a week, because that's the number of parts that I do each week. And what I wanted to do is play Dividi Et Impera but also share it with you guys. So I hit on this idea with the Roman campaign, because everyone does Rome, except that I've never ever finished Rome, because in the vanilla game I just got bored with the steamroll. Is to record the campaign as I play it, but I'm only going to show you guys the interesting bits, the good battles, my successes, my failures. Obviously the first 20-30 turns while I consolidate Italia or get the faction up and running will be covered in detail, but once I've got the momentum going, that's when this new format will slip in. And if it works, guys, that's the way I'm going to do future let's plays as well, because obviously there's, especially with Dividi Et Impera, that there are periods when you do, especially if you push out and capture, say, a couple of provinces, you've got to stop and consolidate those provinces to get your economy stable enough to support your armies to push forward again. So that's the reasoning behind the format for this series. Now, why did I actually stop the previous one? The reason is that they released the 1.2.2 update, and in that update was a very interesting feature that fits very well with Rome, and I just couldn't resist it, guys, and that's why I stopped the series and said I'd restarted it. And as promised, this is what I'm going to do now. What actually happened when the update 1.2.2 came out? Well, it was actually called the Barbarian Overhaul, and again, I've done a video that goes through the roster changes for the Barbarians if you're really interested. But effectively what happened is they revamped some of the Barbarian factions, not all of them, which I think is quite good. And the ones they did is they did the southern British factions, including the Iceni, and gave them new units and rebalanced the rosters. Also the Averni got a roster change, but the other Celtic tribes didn't. So they only changed the playable faction, not the non-playable faction, just to give a bit of variety between the various tribes. Now, it was an interesting one with the Getae, in the sense that the Getae got some very interesting changes. There was a lot of balancing in there, but they got some very cool cavalry. And what I want to do in the future is actually do a let's play as the Getae, because I really want to experiment with the cavalry. They got some nice missile stroke melee cavalry, which could make some very interesting gameplay actually, guys. And what I'll also say about the Getae, I might as well talk about this now, is there was a slight mistake in the Getae when it was released, the fact that they had no navy and they had no baggage trains associated with them, but it was actually fixed in the 1.2.2a update, so the roster should now be complete and fully playable. Now, and the other faction that got a little bit of loving care was the Galatians. They gained a kind of look-alike legionary unit and a couple of Greek style units as well added to their roster to make them a bit more rounded and useful, to also kind of reflect the Greek influence of where they are starting in Asia Minor. So that's it. Now I'm going to get on to the one that actually made me drop the series before, and that is the historical character system that was created by Dresden. This is a very interesting concept, especially if you're like me, you want to get immersed and build a relationship with your generals and take care of them and you just don't go thrown away. I really hate losing a general. I mean, I don't mind them dying in their beds in grand old age, but I just hate losing a general on the battlefield, because I do care about them. And the historical character system is an attempt to introduce a family structure into Rome 2. I mean, there is a family structure, but it's not anything like Attila. And to be honest, it's one of the reasons why I don't really like Warhammer very much, because I do like having a family structure. And the way it works, guys, is that every 50 odd turns, I think, don't quote me on this, there's a random event which appears which says you now have this person who's available to join the faction. I don't think they're actually young. I think they're old enough to be a general because of the rules of the game. And you have an option of recruiting them into the faction. So effectively you're getting a free family member, which you don't have to pay for to recruit as such. And they can join your faction, and then they become available as a general, or you can keep them in the statesman's role, whatever you want. So it's just an interesting dynamic, and they are going to be, where possible, I'm emphasizing where possible because obviously it applies to every faction in the game, and some factions the history is a bit shaky, especially once you get out into the barbarian tribes, but you will get a real character from history join your faction, and that to me really attracts me. I really like that idea, and that is the reason why I'm restarting this campaign, and of course it fits with Rome. If you think about it, guys, some of the great characters of Rome, I'm not sure if we're going to get them, but it really attracts me. Now what I am going to talk a little bit is get a bit tech. Now what actually happens is if you update to 1.2.2a and you've got it there, you can play all the factions with the historical character system except Rome and Carthage. And the reason for that is that if you look at these are separate kind of factions within the families which you've got with different starting places, although I think that one may not be, because that's actually different families. Maybe that will have the same flaw as the Romes, maybe that's been missed. But obviously if you play them on Rome, Massilia, these are starter places. Now the problem with the Romans and the Carthaginians is it says factions here, but they're really families, and you've got 3 families in Rome and 3 families in Carthage. And the way you have to enable these is by loading some submods. There's 6 of them at the moment. Then when you decide to play Rome or Carthage, you've got to enable the one submod which is related to the family you want to play. So effectively you have to choose the family before you actually get to this screen. If you don't do that, you will actually not get the historical character system to work. You will still be able to play Rome, the game won't crash, but you won't have the historical character system. And the way to detect that you've actually got it is if you've played Divide et Impera 1.2, you will remember that the Roman families changed to Nobilis, Patriae and Equites. And when you turn the family submod on, you get back the original families that were associated with the vanilla game, otherwise the Julia, the Junii and the Cornelia. Now, in my first run of this Rome campaign, I played as the Junii because they had the better traits, but in this restart we're going to play as the Julia. The reason is then I don't know if this is actually going to work. You've got people like Caesar and some of the great emperors came from the family Julia. Now because of the start date of 278 BC, there's a good chance we may not get them because it's a lot of turns. I mean, you think about it, 4 turns go 50. Unless Dresden's been a little bit flexible with the birth dates of some of these characters, we may not get to them because you're talking nearly 1,000 turns to get down to effectively the birth of Christ. So that may not work, but it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I'm not going to be disappointed if we don't get them, but I just really like it, and I really like the idea of these generals leading my armies into battle and probably even becoming kind of faction leader. I mean, that's really something I like the idea of, and that's the reason why I want to do this series. So let's get down to it, guys. We're going to play in Rome. Rome will rule the world, and it's her destiny to always has been. And obviously, as playing Rome, we get an extra +1 recruitment slot in all our provinces. Bread and Circus gives us +1 food in all provinces. That's quite a useful trait to have. And of course we're going to be playing as the Julia family. Now obviously the starting position is in 278 BC, that's fixed. It says the recommended difficulty is normal. I'm going to play on hard. To be honest, guys, I say this every time I start a series in Divide et Impera. I don't like very hard and legendary, simply because when you play on those levels, all your 14 armies or whatever you build up over the course of the campaign, they all look the same because they tend to be optimized to deal with the very hard difficulty. And it's also the same with your provinces. I've watched campaigns, I'm not going to talk about the people who do it, and every time they conquer a province, it's click click click, build a temple, build the public order, fix the food, and every province looks the same. And that's not the way I like to play. I like to try and mix things up. I know there are limitations in the game, and that you do have to build certain buildings to control public order, especially, but I do like to try and explore all the different options, especially with Divide et Impera, because you've got the AOR units which can really enhance your armies and give you a different flavour for attack and defence, and just give you a bit more scope so your armies look different. So right, I've rambled on a little bit, guys, so let's get down here. Now the basic traits associated with Julia are that we're barbarian subduers, we get plus 10% melee attack during battles against barbarian tribes. That's going to be useful, but not that useful. Cultural oppressors, plus 25% public order penalties due to the presence of foreign cultures. That makes public order a little bit more difficult to manage, because obviously when we conquer somewhere, there's going to be a very high foreign culture, and that's going to make subduing, again, it can slow up the pace of your advance because you've got to stop and stabilize an area. But in compensation for that, you get Romanization plus 4 cultural conversion. You need to remember, guys, is that you can't recruit your normal troops in a province until your culture has got strong enough to support them. Up until then, you've got to rely on your AOR auxiliary type troops. So that's quite a powerful trait to actually have for the duration of the campaign. Now, just have a quick look at the victory conditions. Obviously, we're going to play a military victory. One day I might do an economic or cultural victory. To be honest, I struggle with these, simply because it just doesn't seem to fit with the way the game plays. And of course, we've got control 90 settlements of direct ownership for client states and military allies. And of course, if you go through, you've got Italia, Magna Graecia, Aquitania, Hyacedan, I think, is in the east somewhere, Africa and Britannia. So effectively what they're implying is that we've got to recreate the Roman Empire. And of course, we'll certainly have more than 180 military units. Navies are going to be quite important in this campaign, because of course we've got to cross the Mediterranean, we've got to invade Britannia, and the navies have to support armies as they move forward. So I think that's about it, guys. As I say, I will be playing hard, battle difficulty normal, because I like the balance. Again, I'm not, and I really want to enjoy this campaign. I'm not trying to prove how great a player I am. This is going to be a sheer pure pleasure campaign. What I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to go onto the campaign map, and again, I'm going to emphasize here, guys, this is not the start of the Let's Play. I'm going onto the campaign map just to talk about a few things to do with the updates. And also, any of you guys who've never played Divide et Impera 1.2 but may have played the vanilla game, I want to explain the differences between the starting position and give you a little bit of my thoughts on strategy, because I think most people are aware that all the starts in Divide et Impera 1.2 are pretty tough, that you can't use the strategy which you can get away with in most factions in vanilla, which is you camp out for a couple of turns, build up a big army and kill your next door neighbour. That doesn't work so much in Divide et Impera 1.2. They've really balanced the diplomatic, they've made the AI a lot more aggressive, means the challenge runs into the mid and even the end game. Where with the vanilla game, what often happens is that the factions all fall away and then you end up just having to conquer a series of small factions. Well, I can assure you in Divide et Impera 1.2 that doesn't happen. I'm pretty well advanced in my Egyptian campaign at the moment, and I've still got some pretty tough opponents and some pretty big potential opponents as well. You've got some factions in there that if I rub them up the wrong way, they would make my life very difficult. And of course, I'm in my Egyptian campaign, I'm also fighting Rome, and that's proving very tough and being a little bit of a headache at the moment. They keep hitting me with these really large veteran armies, and even though I've got good armies with plenty of armor, I'm still struggling a little bit to win the battles, which is what playing this game is all about. Anyway, I'm kind of talking over this load screen. I'll wait to it. I'll stop talking now, guys, until it actually loads. Right, guys, here we are. I'm just going to cancel this. I'll cover that in the actual gameplay, and this is the standard objective you will get virtually everywhere. Completely control 3 provinces by direct ownership, all through client and military, and you get a reward. And this is the starting position for Rome. As I say, if you are familiar with the vanilla game, you'll be aware that up here we've got an extra province. Now, the Etruscan League is here, but unlike the vanilla game, they're not over here. We've got Carthage over here, which is potential threat and a bit of a headache, but more importantly with this start, because again the map may look different, guys, if you played just the Divide et Impera 1.1 or the vanilla game, because this campaign is actually fought on the Imperius Augusta map, which means you actually get an extra settlement here. So there's actually 4 regions in Latinum. The real headache here, and I think this is the real challenge at the start of this campaign, is we have Epirus here, and tucked in here, I don't know if I can illustrate it, guys, they have a pretty difficult army, plus they've got other armies over here, and they can be a real pain in the neck to see. So there's this army here. Oh, can't see it, but they've already got an army of 9 units in here, and then they can also recruit very quickly from here. And I think they've also got we got a Polio. Yeah, they've got a tier 1 barracks there, so they can come over here and just make your life a real pain in the neck to start with. So that's the real challenge. I mean, obviously, I'll just talk a bit of strategy, guys, because again, I'm just going to emphasize that when you start these campaigns in Divide et Impera, you've got to think strategy. It's not the normal process. And the strategy for starting Rome is you need to take out the Etruscans as quickly as possible, preferably in the first 2 turns, which means you need to get this army here up here to take out the Etruscans. Then, of course, you need to consolidate and drive Epirus out of Rome, so you end up with 2 provinces. And once you've got that, where you go next is a matter of personal choice. There's 3 ways out. You can go against Carthage, but remember that in this start, Carthage is one of the few friends that you've got. The other option is to push across here and take out Epirus and get a foothold in Greece. That's exactly what I did in my first run of this series, in the first 4 parts. And the other option is to kind of consolidate this area, take out these barbarian tribes, because you've got the mountain range here, here and here, and what you can actually do is get a nice strong bastion here to stop these guys knocking in. And generally, if you can secure this area, the other tribes, and make friends with the tribes up in this area, you can actually get the peace and quiet to deal with Carthage, because the risk of going straight out against Syracuse and Carthage down here, because if you attack Syracuse, that's going to upset the Carthaginians and they might declare war on you. The trick is that if you can secure this north with 1 army, you can then concentrate on dealing down with this area here. Anyway, guys, that is probably a little bit too much strategy. Now, what I am going to talk about a little bit is that if you actually look at the money, when I started this campaign, I actually did a test. You look, I know, and this turn we actually got 2,364 sesterces or gold, whatever you want to call it. Now that is actually more. It's not much more, but it's a little bit more than when you started in the Divide et Impera 1.2 release. Now the reason for that is that as part of the 1.2.2 release, they've actually introduced some. It says here, well, I'll just read it out, guys. It says population economics added fixed the population system impact on regional economics. It says high foreign population reduces subsistence income, low total population reduces total income. Now I can't demonstrate that, guys, but it means effectively, say if you go out and attack a settlement, say I attack Patavium and loot it, it will have a very high foreign population, so it'll be virtually worthless until I can build it back up. So that's kind of, again, it's part of this process of stopping the steamroll. That if you steamroll too hard, you may win all the battles but lose the economy. The other one is to do with what I was talking about down here, and this is to do with the ratio between your class 1, class 2 population in relation to your class 3 population. And it says here that high relative ratio between class 1 and 2 population will increase your agricultural and industrial income. And that's actually what happens, is that if I come in here, we got a region population. Now as Rome, we start very high, and what you will actually see in the bottom here is that we're actually getting a 5% bonus to agriculture and industry. And of course it doesn't work out much because we don't actually have much industry and agriculture. And you can see we're getting a bonus to subsistence and all incomes plus 15%. So if I come in here and we just look at Rome, you can see here, so we don't get anything from Rome, maritime commerce, no, local commerce, okay. But if I click on here and we have a look, maybe we got subsistence, farming, agriculture, we got minus 1% bonus here. And I think if we probably come back to here and have a look and just put over this area here, you can see there we've actually got a minus 15% impact on, because we're sparsely populated. And this is a kind of hidden stat, guys, which relates to your income and your population. And the tip, guys, is that even if you've got mature provinces like this with high populations, watch your recruitment. Now what actually happens is that if I move this army up to here, which is what would be my first move in this area, because I want to recruit. If I come here and then I think I'll get a couple of starting, I think this is my army build like that. If I come back to here, that hasn't affected that, but what's actually happened is the population will drop because I've been recruiting troops from here to build my army up. But of course the second move that I would actually do is recruit another general, because again, quick tip, guys, is the first generals you get that are members of your faction family here, so you get 4 generals here, their family, and they've all got, oops, nope, they all have these very good stats. So what you actually want to do is get these generals in very, very quickly into the battle. And of course my faction leader is actually down here. This is Fabricus Lucianus here, Gaius Fabricus Lucianus Monaculus. He's actually in Constantia down here, and what I actually need to do is move him up here, because in this initial turn he needs to defend both these settlements. And if you're going to lose a settlement, lose Constantia first, don't lose Beventum. Anyway, I'm talking a little bit more tactics, and that's how I think we'll probably get some troops in there, build this army a little bit. And of course what I will do is, what I start off saying is, I will 5%, I'll probably recruit him, raise an army. And of course, now the reason I'm raising this guy as an army is the fact that when I attack Arretium, because I want to take them out in the first turn, this general will team up with this general, so it would give me 2 powerful cavalry units. And then what will happen is this general will then kind of act to manage the public order in this area while these 2 armies come down to deal with Epirus. Anyway, I shouldn't be talking tactics too much. I think I've covered everything to do with the releases. Let me just have a quick run through. Obviously there's other fixes that came out with the update 1.2.2a to do with combat, which is going to be fun. Some of them related to cavalry charges, so that's going to be quite interesting to experiment with. And I think I've covered everything in this area now. I mean, I will show you diplomacy. As I said, the Carthage is actually friends with us. The Dorsai, you might be able to get trade with them. See if we can get. Nope. I mean, if we can get some friends over here. No. I mean, it's quite difficult to get trade. I mean, you can use cash. Tuscan League, Masilla might.
I am here to listen if you speak honestly.
Nope. They don't like us.
Sell much in our marketplaces.
These guys will probably declare war on us very, very quick. But the key factor at the moment in the initial start is to keep Carthage online. But I think I'm straying now into actual gameplay, and I need to stop. So this is where I'm going to leave it, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this introduction. It's probably a bit longer than it should be. I mean, I will repeat some of this, what I've been talking about on the campaign map, when I actually record part 1 of the campaign. But that just gives you an idea of the starting position, what you need to do, and some of the mechanics of the game. And again, one of the kind of objectives of this campaign is I'm going to probably talk a little bit more about some of the mechanics as I go along, what I know. I'm not claiming to be a total expert, but I think this is where I'm going to leave it, guys. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.